We're giving away a professor's research, and all you have to do to enter is like, comment, subscribe, and we'll be picking a winner on the weekend. And now back to the video. We're about 2 weeks into Everyday Wonders, and today let's go over the metagame so we could see, what decks are thriving, what decks you should be playing in the upcoming ranks tournaments, or whatever you guys will be, playing the game for. And, right here we have Miraidon and Magnezone still being one of the most popular decks out here. And then, in second, Greninja, Mega Absol, and Mega Sableye. Like, this deck right here is super strong. Although it's not seeing that much popularity from that 551 entries, it is gaining traction because it is winning multiple tournaments. This deck is just super strong. I think the addition of Mega Sableye having two attackers for that Dark Ninja deck made it so much better. And then we got Mega Subtile Greninja, and then Sweet Bax is making a resurgence. And, you could see that Hydreigon and Absol is 63 63 entries with this deck, and it's on the 20th popular deck, which is kind of surprising, really. But let's just go over the decks that you should be looking out for. So first of all, Mega Blaziken and Greninja, the deck, super high roll, but the more consistent high roll that you're gonna see in this meta. And overall it's strong. You got the cast form that could give your opponent a burn, and then you got Heatmore attacking the back row, and then you got Greninja pings, and then Mega Blaziken does best, does 120 damage with the additional 20 burn. You do play Juliana and Field Blower, so the deck hasn't really changed too much from the last seasons. It's just seeing a lot more play now, and has been seeing a lot more success. So expect to see more Mega Blazikens. Next up, we have the Miraidon EX, and with Zeraora, confidently we could say the Zeraora version is actually the more stronger dominant version too, because like at the same time, if you get that Zeraora with the energy, that's a huge boost. Not to mention, dealing with Oricorio is so much easier instead of relying on Magnezone coming up, and having that 90 HP is pretty huge. People are playing the double Miraidon with the one Professor's Turo, and then you got the Giant Cape, Clemont to search your Magnetons, and Sabrina to push for game, because once Miraidon has a bunch of energy, it can literally one-shot almost anything. So if you don't want to knock out their Mega Pokemon for their last Pokemon, you got Sabrina to end the game. Next up, we do have Gardevoir and Mega Diancie. This deck is just overall pretty strong, and the comfy's there because you do have to respect the status elements and like sleep. It does work good against the Blaziken burn and the Mega Sceptile with the poison, but the main reason it's there is to deal with the sleep. And overall, use Gardevoir to ramp up energy once you attack, and you'll have Mega Diancie come out there like a nuke and just bomb everything. You do have Particular Plaza and Poncho. Poncho is actually very popular right now because with Dark Ninja being super popular, that's a card that you have to respect, and taking 20 pings from that is not the move. So you do definitely got to play the Poncho. Next up, we have a Milotic Chen Pao version. So this is one of the good versions of playing Milotic EX without sleep, because the sleep scam with Milotic, you're better off playing like more water support. And here you could move energy with Vaporeon into Chen Pao to do 130 damage. So the GA Vaporeon is definitely seeing a lot of love in this new set with Milotic, and they do pair well together. Here in this variant, playing the EV Find a Friend is pretty good because you get to draw a card, and then, Boosted Evolution is fine. In this deck, you're not really trying to do the Boosted Evolution because, this Vaporeon has a 2 retreat cost, and you want this thing in the bench, so you have the Wallace to evolve the Feebas, and then Licia to search your EVs and Feebases, and then the Pokeballs here to search the EVs. Ideally, if or Chun Pao after using Licia. So the deck is pretty good. Irida's there, as a little tech card for healing, because sometimes healing goes a long way. Next up we have here is Mega Sceptile and Greninja. Not gonna lie, this is kind of the same, theory crafting when it comes to the Blaziken. You just color swapping. Not really, because Furmosa gets to attack the bench, right? And then you have the Furfrou. Furfrou taking -20 could definitely help with the Chinglings, and starting to see a lot more play, and it's just kind of insane doing double headbutt 30 times, flip 2 coins, and the attack does 30 damage for each head with the potential of dealing 60 damage is pretty cool. Odds are you get like at least 1 heads, right? That's what they say. Playing Small Balloon, Field Blower, Hiking Trail, and Juliana. So one thing that has been gaining traction with all these Greninja decks, with the Mega Sceptile and Mega Blaziken, Juliana has been thrown into the mix. Not only does it get you the Sceptile, it does get you the Greninja as well. So it's like a 50-50, but at the same time it's pretty good. Next up we have Zoroark EX. Again, this version was successful, that's why I'm bringing it up. Me myself, I don't think I would play the Roaring Moon, but Roaring Moon could have the potential to finish a game, so like it's pretty strong. Zoroark EX, overall monster, you could, if you could set this up in the beginning of the game, you're pretty much all set, because you're dealing 90 for 1 energy while you build up the back row, which is kind of insane. So the deck does the same thing it does in the last season. It's just overall a powerhouse, and I would recommend that you play this, especially for rank. This is definitely a rank deck because it's just super strong. Next up we have Sleep Scam. Not really much to say. The deck, if you're down to flip for sleep, it's so good, and we'll probably see representation on the ladder, but at the same time, is it a deck we respect or want to see? Nah. But at the same time, it's going to be seen, so that's why I brought it up. Next up we have a interesting version of Mega Lucario. This Mega Lucario version with Hitmonlee and Furfrou has been seeing popularity over the last couple weeks, and this came second place in Pocket Match tournament. It's really strong. You do play 1-1 Riolu. There's not much to say. The Furfrou definitely just is there to defend. At the same time you build up your Mega Lucario, because let's be real, once this Mega Lucario has like 3 energy, this thing's like one-shotting anything. And then once they bring out their Mega, you got the Karina and then the Arena just to finish the game off, and then you got Rocky Helmet to do residual damage. Whether you have the Hitmonlee or Furfrou, Hitmonlee's putting pressure on your opponent's bench, so that's one thing to put out there. But Mega Lucario still looking super strong this season. And then we have another version with Sock. Most of you guys might be familiar with this version. Shout out to Lucian. This is the one hit version he played. This deck is amazing. Like overall, you know, also playing the 1/1 Riolu, but he did play the Riolu that does more damage to the Pokemon's EX, which combines really well with the Arena, just in case if you need that extra damage. And then just opting in to play the regular Lucario too, to get an extra 20, which is pretty good. Obviously the 2 Lucario because you want to see Mega Lucario EX as soon as possible. And you know, the Rocky Helmet I feel like is the correct play, is the correct way to, you know, play this deck, because like doing that extra 20 damage is definitely the make it or break it when it comes to Mega Lucario knocking you out. And last but not least, you know, this is basically the variant that, you know, is considered the best one. You know, the Lucky Egg, one small balloon, and then you have the Mega Sableye, Mega Absol, Darkrai, Chingling, and then the Greninja line with the rare candies. Overall, it's Dark Ninja, but they got, you know, buffed with Mega Sableye. Mega Sableye is just a beast. You know, it makes your opponent think twice, and yeah, no, the deck is super strong, speaks for itself, has been performing really well in multiple tournaments. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this meta report. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Peace.